As a leader of a business with almost 8,000 employees all over the world and traveling all over the world, I feel I have a responsibility to help them be safe when they're out there on our behalf. And I think I have a moral obligation to provide a solution that helps them be safe.
That's Mike Eberhardt, president of SAP Concur, the global provider of travel and expense management services. He's talking about a subject close to his heart, the responsibility of organizations to protect the safety of employees. It's about giving business travelers the tools to know that even if they're in a remote corner of the globe, navigating an unfamiliar city, you've got their back. Hello, and welcome to the Intelligent Business Podcast, presented by SAP Concur. In this series, we examine how organizations are using human intelligence, coupled with emerging technologies, to gain better visibility into how their money is being spent and how risk is being managed. I'm your host, Michael Barnwell, Executive Editor at the Wall Street Journal's Custom Studios. In today's episode, we hear from two executives at SAP Concur, President Mike Eberhardt and Director of Supplier Marketing, Amy Paget. They discuss not only the importance of traveler safety, but ways that an intelligent business can identify and address specific risk areas related to duty of care. We're speaking with Mike Eberhardt, president of SAP Concur. Mike, you've said that beyond legal responsibilities, businesses have a moral obligation to ensure traveler safety. Tell me more about that.
Traveler safety is really important to businesses, I think, originally because of something called duty of care. And duty of care is a term that really came on specific legal obligation for companies. I think there's two shifts that have moved from it being just a legal responsibility. One is clearly a moral responsibility, in that I know when I became the leader of SAP Concur, I wanted to make sure that I was caring for my employees. And secondly, you want to be able to provide an environment where they're safe. And that doesn't just mean in their office or in your own location, but it's out meeting with customers, out building your business around the globe.
A survey released in 2018 by the Global Business Travel Association found that 1/3 of travel managers don't know how long it would take to confirm every employee's safety in an emergency. That's a surprisingly high number. What do you think of those figures?
Well, first, it's shocking. Our perspective is that you should be able to, now with today's technology and the services that are out there, regardless of any size company, be able to answer that question and confirm your traveler safety and have the capability to help them if they need your assistance, regardless of size.
Mike, what do you think is at the root of that problem?
Traditionally, everybody had been relying on the itinerary, and the itinerary was a very stale approach that was likely booked with a travel agency. And times have changed. I mean, plans change pretty regularly now. I don't know about you, but for me, just about every trip I have has some modification along the way. And it's difficult for one piece of data, which is the original itinerary, to really give accurate information of where people are. The second is, even if you do know, do you have the tools to reach out to them and confirm that they're safe?
You mentioned the role of technology in solving this. Can you say more about that?
Technology is key because what's required is accurate data, the ability to locate the traveler when an event happens, and the ability to communicate and provide assistance. So a good example of that is if you're traveling on business, it's not just an old itinerary, but it's a current form of itinerary and information that you may be providing while you're traveling. I think Concur is the number one application used by our customers' traveling employees when they're actually traveling. That allows them to be providing information, whether they took a picture of a taxi receipt, whether they used their corporate card, which is linked to our system, or they booked their hotel while they're traveling. All of that information is available to us. And so for the first time, really technology allows you the ability to have the actual data and then the ability to communicate, whether that's in-app messaging, whether that's SMS, whether that's email, or even phone calls.
Let's continue with technology. So many industries today are being transformed by advances like AI, artificial intelligence, and ML, machine learning. What are these technologies doing for traveler safety?
AI and ML is definitely helping in traveler safety, and a lot of that has to do with the fact that the first premise we talked about was data. And so your ability to interpret the data and identify location information, a lot of that could be not necessarily digital data that was transferred to us in digital form, but actually in image form, so a picture of the receipt. The ability to digest that receipt, break down from a pixel standpoint and understand location information, a lot of that has to do with AI and ML.
A big trend in business travel today is employees booking outside of their company's internal booking system. One of SAP Concur's business products, TripLink, is designed to capture data around those bookings. How does that come into play for ensuring traveler safety?
The TripLink capability to help in traveler safety has a lot to do with the fact that many of the, for example, hotel providers that are out there, or airline providers, or even car rental providers, allow the traveler to go directly to the supplier, book, and have that information come in electronically because their profiles are synced across SAP Concur system and the supplier system. And now that information can be brought in, not just for traveler safety, but also managing a spend program.
You've got another product, Concur Locate. It's meant to help companies communicate with employees who are traveling. So let's say an employee is traveling outside the country and an emergency breaks out. Could be a natural disaster or some kind of civil unrest. Can you walk me through what the Locate system does next?
First is when the incident happens, the administrator can log into SAP Concur and within a map, circle where the potential area of concern is. Based on that map, all of their employees that have a degree of probability of being in that location will come up. With one click, they can send a communication to those employees. That communication is going to come across in an SMS, in an email, and inside of the application for the employee. The employee would then see the alert. They could text back that they're okay, or they can answer in the application that they're okay, or in an email that they're okay. And literally within minutes, there's a final report that then goes out maybe 20 minutes later that would allow a company to say, here's the full picture of the incident, the employees that have checked in okay, and the employees that need assistance. And they would work with either their assistance provider or their employee programs to go and help those employees.
Mike, if you had to sum up the business value of the traveler safety tools we've been discussing, what would it be?
To me, it is important for your company culturally to provide these types of tools, to let them know that you're caring for them, that you're acting for their safety, and that ultimately it becomes business critical.
Also joining us today is Amy Paget. She's the Director of Supplier Marketing at SAP Concur. Amy, one of the things you're passionate about is addressing the safety and security issues faced specifically by women who are traveling. What should travel managers be aware of when it comes to female travelers?
So for the travel manager, they certainly need to be cognizant of the elevated security concerns for women in travel, particularly women who travel by themselves on a business trip. They need to think about that in terms of their corporate travel policy. Think about lodging options for individual female travelers. Think about certain transportation for women travelers in certain regions. And that does need to be incorporated into their policy.
From the perspective of women who are traveling for business, what kinds of choices should they be given within a travel management system?
Things that they can call out are hotel room preferences. Make it a second or third floor room. Make sure that there are double locks on the room. Make sure that ground transportation is provided for.
From a safety standpoint, how important is it to have all of a business traveler's trip details and data, flights, ground transportation, hotels, captured in a single platform?
It's critically important, but it's tricky out there. there are a lot of options for the traveler. Lodging companies appeal to travelers to book direct. Travelers say that they can find lower fares in certain places. There are a lot of incentives to book outside of the online booking tool that the company owns or the travel management company, the corporate travel agency. And so it's tough for travel managers and even travelers to collect that information in one place. But in terms of safety and security for all travelers, it's imperative to have the information in one place.
Speaking of information, what kinds of information and data are you integrating within SAP Concur's business tools to help ensure that companies have a better handle on traveling employees?
Well, with Concur TripLink, that's the product at SAP Concur that we use to bring bookings from outside back into the managed travel program. We are regularly adding new suppliers, new travel suppliers to the TripLink supplier network. So what that means is that if a traveler were to book directly on one of those supplier sites, their corporate travel information would be integrated back into Concur. Also, we're adding new enhancements to the TripIt Pro product every day. There are city maps and city information details in the TripIt app. And all of these things are built with duty of care and ease of travel in mind.
A moment ago, you mentioned SAP Concur's partnerships with travel suppliers. Can you tell me a bit more about the importance of these partnerships?
Through these partnerships, we're able to bring bookings that happen outside of the managed travel program back into the managed travel program so that travelers have that holistic visibility in one place. They can see their entire itinerary in one spot. We also make it possible for travel managers to get their negotiated rates on those bookings. And that's just an added value to our corporate customers.
There's a growing trend toward business-leisure combination trips. That's where a traveler extends a business trip into a personal weekend. What is SAP Concur doing to ensure that companies can reach their employees if there's an emergency during this leisure segment of that trip?
It's pretty important to make this business leisure situation a call out in the corporate travel policy so that travelers know it's okay, and it's okay to forward your private trip that extends beyond your work trip to plans at TripIt or through the supplier integrations. SAP Concur TripLink brings all of those bookings that are happening outside of the managed travel program back into Concur. And for me, it really makes me comfortable knowing that even my leisure part of the business leisure trip is covered.
On the subject of business and leisure, Amy, I'd like to wind up by bringing this around to your own personal experience. Do you have an example from your travels, whether in business or leisure, where the tools we've been discussing have played a role in enhancing your own sense of safety?
Yes. So I recently went on vacation to Paris. And when I was planning for this vacation, I was forwarding all of my itineraries to plans at TripIt. So I knew all of my information is in one place, and I felt really good about it. I felt even better when I got an alert on my phone from SAP Concur saying that there is an incident at the Charles de Gaulle airport and asking me if I was okay. Fortunately, I wasn't near the airport at that time, and I was just fine. But it gave me so much confidence knowing that not only was I able to get around Paris and my travel stuff was all in one spot, but my company was looking out for me.
We end today with both of our guests sharing a bit of practical advice for executives about ensuring traveler safety. First, let's hear from Amy Paget.
My one piece of advice to management is that they need to get the visibility of their traveler whereabouts. 50% of lodging bookings happen outside of the managed travel program. 20% of air bookings happen outside of the managed travel program. Corporations don't know where their travelers are. It's critical that they get 100% visibility into their program so that they can support their travelers while they're on the road.
And here's Mike Eberhardt.
Ask your teams, do they have the ability to know the location if an incident occurs? Do they have a service that tells them whether an incident has occurred so they can even prompt to look for the employees? And do they have technology to be able to communicate with those employees en masse? In certain locations, you may have larger numbers of employees that could be affected. Those are the areas that I would suggest that an executive probe to ensure that they're taking care of their ability to keep their travelers safe.
Thank you to our guests today. On the next episode of the Intelligent Business Podcast, the corporate T&E. For business travelers, it can be time-consuming drudge work. For employers, it's a potential source of waste, fraud, and misuse. What if employees and management had a better way to handle T&E, one that was completed by robots? We'll explore the reality and the possibilities. Until then, I'm Michael Barnwell of the Wall Street Journal's Custom Studios. Thanks for listening. To learn more about SAP Concur, visit concur.com/WSJ.